Call this regular meeting of the Dickinson City Council to order. Item 1, a call to order and certification of quorum.
Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember Townsend?
Here.
Mayor Skipworth?
Here.
Councilmember Brantley?
Here.
Councilmember Schick?
Here.
Councilmember Linton?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you move on to item 2, the invocation. Councilman Brantley, would you lead us in invocation, please? Thank you.
Father God, we thank you for this day. God, we thank you for bringing us here. God, we thank you for entrusting us to lead your people. God, we pray that you would guide us, that you would provide us with your wisdom or with your knowledge, God, and that we would do your will. It's in your son, Jesus' name, we pray and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
You join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First, the United States flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas pledge. Honor
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 4. We have no proclamations and awards this evening, so we'll move on to item 5, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.0415. Item 5A, council comments. We'll begin with Councilman Linton.
Good evening, everybody. Council, Mayor. Just had a few things. This on Friday, the 16th of June, I met with EMS Director Derek Hunt and IT Director Amina Metri to discuss the EOC and their setup and what their needs are. And so that was really interesting because I hadn't seen the EOC set up, and so it was educational. Meeting with the Alexis and a citizen about drainage issue, and Alexis, I believe, has contacted the Waller County folks to address that with some asphalt. I also, this past Saturday, visited the Bayou Animal Services, the animal shelter, for a meet and greet with my dog. I just wanted to mention to everybody that's the service they have. If you have 2 dogs, like I do, and you're one of them is gone and you're looking at replacing that dog, you can bring your dog up there to see which one of the dogs that they have will work best with them. So also, I'd like to mention that at railroad tracks. So I'd mentioned that last time, and it looks like they have fixed it. Talked with Alexis and Alexis Santiago, and he had gone out there and watched them. I tried to, but I had a couple of things going on that Saturday. He had spoken to the people on site, and it looks like this time, instead of repairing the asphalt, they dug down approximately 5 feet, reinstalling the concrete base, and gravel, concrete base, gravel, and then the concrete header in between the tracks. They cut through the railroad tracks to dig down 5 feet. So hopefully that is an indication that they have applied a long-term fix this time. And I got my fingers crossed for it, but I just like to remind everybody I'd been submitting requests since December 12th of 22, and I know others have done so as well. So this is not due to my request. It's due to a team effort. Thanks to all of you who contacted Union Pacific to address the issue. And I'd also like to thank Union Pacific for addressing the issue and for preventing any further damage to vehicles that travel that route, especially those vehicles belonging to our first responders. The last thing I have, I believe that is going to, I did want to mention one last thing. So I forgot to mention during my previous council comments that the week before I located a stray kitten on my way home. I contacted Bayou Animal Services, and with the help of lead animal control officer Marcus Jackson, the kitten was brought to the shelter to be cared for and will be hopefully adopted soon. Also, there was a rescue of another kitten a few days later by one of their interns, and she got on YouTube, so she stole my thunder, but congratulations to her. Marcus has a tough job dealing with the cases of animal abuse, so thanks again, Marcus. Glad to have you as part of our team. Also, Bayou Animal Services is looking for another animal control officer, so please contact them if you know of anyone who may be interested. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Councilman Schick.
Thank you. I think we'll call that Fred's Crossing from now on. He'll take ownership of that. So last week I met with Texas First Bank. They are looking for additional ways to be involved with the community. I gave them several nonprofits and organizations to contact, and they seem very interested. They've changed hands around there so many times that the new people weren't familiar with what was going on around town. So we look forward to them being involved in some of our activities. Attended a follow-up meeting for ICSC last week that the EDC board went to in Vegas. It was just a follow-up meeting, work orders, and some people to contact. Reminder, the Pilot Club will hold their annual 4th of July parade. I believe it is over 45 years old. Registration begins at 8 a.m., parade starting at 9. Parade is open to all youth between the ages of 1 and 12 years old. Please continue to keep Lieutenant Raul Gutierrez, firefighter Gary Dar, and Chris Cobb in your prayers. My understanding is that Chris has been able to return to work. The other two still have not been able to return to work. They're the ones that got hurt fighting the fire at the historic Nicholson home. And a big shout out to Keith and Marjorie Morgan for putting on a fundraiser for them. They donated all the food, and I don't remember what the total was that they raised, but it was a very good project. McCree Ford received the Keep Texas Beautiful Business Award. We're very proud of them. And also the Dickinson High School Reveilleers, who traveled to Indiana University for the International Thespian Festival, where they received a superior or excellent rating. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Brantley.
Thanks for everybody that's here, everybody listening online. Tonight, I'm pretty excited to announce congratulations to the Dickinson 12-year-old Major All-Star team for winning the Little League Texas East District 14 Championship. They now move on to play teams representing all Houston area districts in the sectional tournament that begins July 5th at North Houston American Little League. Also wanted to mention we're in the middle of hurricane season here on the coast. This is your reminder to tune into the Dickinson Emergency Notifications Alert System. Sign up for text alerts about weather and emergencies in the city of Dickinson. Visit the Dickinson City website to register. This week, staff recognition. I would like to recognize Julianne Lane, our library director. Not only is she dealing with the hassle of the library construction, she is in the midst of that. She is doing an excellent job putting on the summer reading program, the city library summer reading program. And you can find out more about that on the city website, as well as following the city Facebook and library Facebook page. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Councilman Townsend.
Thank you to everybody that's out tonight. We didn't get to last meeting, so I'd like to thank everybody that came out and voted for us and voted for the other candidates that ran. It seemed to be a pretty clean race from what I seen, but I was working a shutdown, so I might have missed something. But I want to thank everybody.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Simpson.
Thank you to everyone that's joining us here at City Hall. We really appreciate you being here in person and, of course, online. The M.I. Lewis Social Service Center is in need of volunteers for their July Saturday food distribution event on July 15th at 6 a.m. Yes, 6 a.m. During the month of July, M.I. Lewis loses some of their volunteers who are unable to participate in the heat of summer. Myself and members of the Dickinson Youth Action Council will be out there, and we hope to have some others step up and join us that day. It's never too early to start thinking about back to school. Dickinson ISD has some really big changes coming this year with the opening of a new junior high, pre-K now available at every elementary campus, and the realignment of grade levels. There will be a back to school community fair on August 5th at Dickinson High School in collaboration with City of Dickinson, Dickinson ISD, M.I. Lewis, Communities in Schools, and Salty Cuts. You can register with M.I. Lewis for school supplies, register with Salty Cuts for free haircuts for students, and you can learn more online at dickinsonisd.org/community fair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City staff, citizens. Welcome to those in the building and those online. Since the last council meeting, I attended the Houston Galveston Area Council board meeting, regular board meeting, and the Finance Committee meeting. Some items of note. They offer, Houston Galveston Area Council now offers a transportation credit, which will match the local requirement for certain state and federal projects. So if there's say a $50 million project and they expect the city to put up 5, we can put up 2.5 and then get a transportation credit from HGAC in order to lower our overall burden. There was also much discussion about, I don't remember the bill number off the top of my head, but it's called the Death Star bill, which goes into effect September 1, that removes a lot of local authority from cities and counties. I'm not sure how that's going to play out going forward, but that was the talk of the HGAC as well. But that is all I have at this time, Mayor.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 5B, the city manager update. I'll turn it over to our city manager, Theo Melanson.
Mayor, council, don't have too many updates other than to say is that what you'll see in your packet is the Galveston Central Appraisal District proposed 24 budget and approved 22 audit. Wanted to add that on just for your edification, and if there's any public comment to be had on the 24 proposed budget, you have that in your packet to meet with Galveston County Appraisal District. So that's all I have for this meeting.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 6, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council may not deliberate. Our first public comment this evening is Sheena Pearson.
Hi, good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Sheena Pearson, and I am here to tell you about a local nonprofit.
Before you get started, if you could give your address as well, just for the record.
Yes, so born and raised in Galveston County. I'm a BOI, but my actual home is in Texas City, Texas.
Perfect.
And if you need the address, I'll write it down outside. I like to keep that confidential. So this is Gia. Gia is one of our nonprofit youth ambassadors, and she is going to tag team with me today and help us get through this presentation, okay? So first and foremost, she has a sign that she wants to show you. This is our website. We're with Gulf Coast Epilepsy Alliance. We've been serving the Gulf Coast community, especially Galveston County, for almost 10 years. So our website is gceatx.org. And if you want to go that way, you can go that way. And we have an invitation for you. So that's why we're here today. We are inviting you to come join Gulf Coast Epilepsy Alliance for a fun afternoon in the park. We do have an indoor and an outdoor component this year. We are recognizing GCEA Superheroes for October Suit Up Epilepsy Awareness Month. We will have a live butterfly release, music, pop-up market outdoors, puppy therapy, a silent auction, food trucks, photo booths, face painting, and friendship. So if you know Deb Dietz, Deb does a lot of the painting here in the city of Dickinson. Her life has been touched by epilepsy, and I'll let you ask her what her connection is specifically. But Deb is our face painter. She's been with our organization for a number of years, and she will be there joining us as well this year as our face painter. So we are raising Suit Up awareness. So Suit Up is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. And so we're going to learn how to keep those with epilepsy seizure safe. So Gia is going to show you who started GCEA, Gulf Coast Epilepsy Alliance. So this is Tristan Pearson. I want to mention that we are being sponsored by UTMB Health Galveston, and we are being sponsored by UT Health Neurosciences Houston. I also want to mention that our two primary speakers, I always like to have one speaker from the Galveston area and one speaker from Harris County area. And so Dr. Todd Maisel is a very good friend of ours, and he'll be presenting from UTMB Medical Branch Galveston. And then from Houston, we have a new physician that we have fallen in love with that helps greatly. Her name is Dr. Henna Dave. She also sees patients in Houston, but she has built out an EMU, an epilepsy monitoring unit, out of the Woodlands area. So many of our members go to both locations. So I'm going to let Gia hand out and give each of you an invitation. And then I just want to show you, this is how we kind of started off 10 years ago. So this was our group about 10 years ago. This is what our group looks like. It was a very small group that we had. And then the pandemic hit, COVID hit, and all of a sudden we kind of grew very, very quickly and very drastically. So we manage about 1,700 members now as of this week. Thank you, hun. And do you want to hand out a card to everybody? Thank you. And so one of the things that Tristan worked on was having a couple of laws passed. So he had 2 laws passed. One is called Sam's Law, which protects children in school districts. They have free seizure first aid training at the beginning of every academic school year. I'm sure you all know this guy right here. This is Randy Weber, pictured with my son, who worked with us again to get Sam's Law passed. And our new Senator, Mays Middleton, there's Tristan, that's my kiddo, working to get another bill passed. So we are working currently on our 3rd bill right now to keep those with seizures safe. And unfortunately, if you'll pass that around, this is what happens when people are not trained in seizure first aid. So we'd really like to extend an invitation to come to our event, hear what the doctors have to say, come learn with us. We want to keep each other seizure safe. It's a fun day. It's music. It's a lot of fun. We are extending the invitation to all of the Gulf Coast areas of Texas. And we are a grassroots, very small nonprofit as far as not in membership, but in putting ourselves out there a whole lot, because we have so many family members that are in and out of hospitals, brain surgeries, VNS surgery, another piece of legislation that we're working on. And we are seeking and learning how to secure sponsorships, how to do grant writing. So this is something that's new to our organization. So Tristan is an Eagle Scout. He's been covered by the New York Times, and he's in a learning curve with his mom and all these many amazing members that we have. So I want to talk to you real quick to wrap up. We're going to do a couple of stats together, right? High five. Yep. Okay. Got a card. Fantastic. We're going to do some stats. So I want everybody, I know you have paper and pen. On one hand, I want you to write 1 in 10. And on the other hand, I want you to write 1 in 26. 1 in 10, 1 in 26. So you ready? 1 in 10 will have a seizure in their
Lifetime.
1 in 10. 1 in 10 could be mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, one of your children. 1 in 10. Everybody needs to know seizure first aid training. These stats come from cdc.gov. 1 in 26. So 1 in 26 will be diagnosed with epilepsy. So those are seizure disorders. 1 in 26. Take a look at the room. Take a look at how many people we have in this room right now. Somebody is going to be diagnosed with epilepsy. It touches our lives in a very profound way. And I want you to know that it is very hidden. It is not talked about. It is not discussed. When my son was diagnosed, my family, my friends, everyone. I work for the president of UTMB, Dr. David Callender, for the VP of development. And I was told by coworkers, do not talk about it. And we did that. We did that for a while until my son became sicker and sicker and sicker. So at 12, diagnosed, and then I watched him go from a vibrant, active, athletic child to not being able to put sentences together. The medications are harsh, they're hard. And so we partnered with foundations like Make-A-Wish. I'm now a wish granter. I partnered with Tim Tebow Foundation. We now do a prom for those with epilepsy. So there's a lot of great things that we have going in the organization. We want to tell you more, but in order for you to learn about us, we need you to come to our event. So our event is October 8th. It's at Carbide Park. We have sorry. I just went blank on. We have the Wayne Johnson Community Center, again, October 8th on a Sunday afternoon, 2 to 5 p.m. Senator Mays Middleton will be there. We also do awards programs. So we have 10 awardees. These are our medical staff. There are doctors. There are professionals. There are EEG technicians. They're everyone that's connected. Or they could be someone like the lady at NRG. Texans football team gifted us tickets. We go to a football game and we have an emergency situation. And one of the employees was a lifesaver in the women's bathroom. So we're honoring her. So we want you to come meet all these amazing people that we have within the organization and then those that we're honoring as well. And so Senator Mays Middleton will be providing recognition, appreciation, and I think it's called a resolution that he will be gifting to these 10 awardees this year. So I want to thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, please let us know. Again, our website, if you will, please. Tristan has a video. It's a very short video. He created it at 14 years old when he created the UTMB Epilepsy Fund to support Dr. Todd Mazel at UTMB. It's gceatx.org. Again, Gulf Coast Epilepsy Alliance at gceatx.org. And I want a big round of applause. This child is in speech classes and was very nervous about coming up here today, but she did a great job. And I'm really proud of you. So round of applause. Yay! I love you. Good job. Okay. Thank you for your time today.
All right. Thank you very much. And lastly, we have Mr. Garland Copeland.
Good evening. My name is Garland Copeland. I live at 3717 Kellner, Dickinson. I was going to talk about one of the items that's on the consent agenda, and I would talk then if it gets pulled from the consent agenda, but I have no way of knowing if that's going to happen or not. So I guess I can talk now. The consent agenda item 7H has to do with a change order on the street project. It appears from the information that I've got, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this work has already been completed. Change orders open the door for malfeasance when they're not handled the way that they're supposed to be handled. In my experience, I've seen where you have a contract and it spells out how change orders are supposed to be handled, and then people start deviating from that for whatever reason, and then the next thing you know, something gets paid that shouldn't have been paid, and something gets paid more or less, and you just need to follow the wording in the contract. This work has already been done. What does the original contract say about, because I haven't seen the contract, what does it say about how change orders are to be handled? How are the change orders priced? In this particular documentation that y'all put online says that this change order can be executed by the city manager or his designee. Who's the designee should he decide not to do that? For this amount of money, I think it should be the city manager, not somebody else. So these are the kind of questions that came up in my mind when I was reading through this documentation. It says the change order as per Exhibit A, and you look at Exhibit A, and it's nothing more than just an estimate of what the cost is going to be. There's no wording, no reference to the contract, no change order number, nothing. It's just an estimate of what the cost is. So what's the total cost going to be? Is that it? The contractor submitted what I consider a very unprofessional request for a change order. And now it's gotten to city council for approval. And I think it's very unprofessional. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate motion on discussion on these items unless the council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda. All right. Anyone else? All right. All right, is there a motion to approve items 7B and 7C?
I second.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Brantley, second by Councilman Linton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 7A, consideration and possible action on approving the minutes of the City Council special meeting of June 13th, 2023. The motion approved by Councilman Brantley. Is there a second? A second by Councilman Schick. Any discussion? Your microphone.
Yes, there need to be a correction to it on, one of them. I voted yes and I voted no. I don't think I can do that. Oh, it's 7K. It shows that I voted yes, and then it shows I voted no on a 5-1. I looked at my notes, I voted for it, so I know I didn't vote twice.
Which one was K?
The resolution.
The resolution for the, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that looks like the resolution for the Motorola police communication.
The regional dispatch
Okay,
system.
yeah, I don't know why it would say that. Yeah.
Well, it needs to be
Yeah,
corrected.
understood,
That's
understood.
why I brought it out. It
Understood.
needs to have a correction, so his motion needs to,
Understood.
with correction.
Okay, so we'll make that correction. Both you. Agree with the correction, I see. Okay, all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7D, consideration and possible action to approve the FY 2024 budget calendar.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Councilman Simpson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Brantley. Any discussion?
Yes. I was looking at the dates on there. They seem to be before council meetings. We're going to do like a regular budget workshop where we come in here and ask all the questions.
Yes, sir. So the goal would be for us to have the workshop pre-meeting and then we go into, and then we'd roll into our regular meeting after that.
But we're not going to have one for one night where we can come in and just go through the budget and ask questions about it. Because if you come in at 6, it only gives you about 30, 45 minutes.
Well, I
per
mean,
shot, you know what I'm saying?
oh, sure. I understand. I mean, we can always accommodate to have like a long, if we want to have like a 2, 3, 4 hour one, I mean, we can definitely accommodate that. How can we accommodate that if we need to have the line by line presentation?
Mayor, Council. First of all, this is just kind of the preliminary draft,
I understand.
so we can lay out the flow, and some of it's required on like when the certified appraisal rolls are, when you have to have your public hearings, when you have to publish your public hearings, and of course that to have everything done by September 30th. So there's leeway there, and this year we wanted to do things earlier and compared to last year. That's why the initial draft is for July 11th. So really you have any potential workshop before a regular meeting from July 11th all the way to the last meeting in September to incorporate if you need follow-up, if there's more of a need. And we can always adjust the schedule for any workshop when it's going to start, based on when your time allows you to be there and how long you can be there. But we mainly just wanted to get a calendar out there. So when you look at your schedules for the summer and leading into early fall, we can plan accordingly.
That's when I looked at, I see them starting, normally your special meeting start at 6. Doesn't leave a lot of time for questions. I know I'll have questions because I'm new, but I'm sure the other council people have questions and they might have a question that I didn't think about. So if you have a joint deal like that, you kind of get everybody's deal. I was just wondering if y'all just did one night where it was just budget and nothing else.
I mean, we typically, since I've been on since 2019, we haven't really done that. I think they used to do that, like a big
Used
one
to,
like
yeah.
that.
I'm used to it,
What,
so.
what we've done, at least since I've been on council, is, I mean, everybody gets the thing, everybody looks through the budget, then we work stuff out. And then if with the city manager to ask questions or other things, and then if there is a need for something like that, like we've had ones about like specific things that come up, but we haven't done like a line by line go through in the meeting anyway. I mean, everybody goes through the budget, but I mean, my preference, this is just me, would be to kind of do that if there was, everybody looks through the budget, if there are specific questions that constitute needing to have like a meeting to address them, then we can certainly have more time. I don't think we have to do everything within an hour before these meetings now, if we need to do more.
I think one of our meetings, I think that not for the FY22, but I remember when we were finishing up the FY21, we actually had meetings that did start at, I believe, 5 o'clock. So we had like kind of a 2-hour window. So that's also an option too, if everyone can make a 5 o'clock, if we do need to have a longer time. And I think we ended up meeting more than once. We kind of met like 2 or 3 different times with follow-ups. It wasn't like, here's your one meeting and good luck with that. You know, we've had follow-ups.
I'm used to having more than one, but it doesn't, I know when they say line to line, I don't want everybody to think we're going to go down every little line, but it lets you go through your synopsis of it, and everybody has different questions, and it makes it interesting for everybody to get a grasp of what you're doing. Okay.
Mark, I'll also say, because I was new last year, when we got the binder with the budget in it, Theo he did spend, I think, probably 6 to 10 hours with me just completely going through the budget, like you're talking about line by line. So he and Harrison both were really good about sitting down with me and explaining everything to me, because I had a ton of questions, and I'm sure I will this year as well.
I just think when you do it with the whole group, I might have questions you didn't think about, and you probably got some that I didn't think about. So just more a better grasp of what the budget is. Okay.
Have that opportunity to collaborate. What we try to knock out in those one-on-one sessions are kind of the basic questions, like, how do you, sometimes the questions are, well, how do you calculate retirement expense? Okay, well, this is how TMRS works. Is, if you're not in city government, you don't know how we calculate those type of things,
There'd probably be some value to creating a register. It wouldn't be deliberations, but creating a register and logging all of our questions and sharing them with each other as well.
Sure, that's not a problem.
All right, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7E, reports from staff members, the quarterly investment report and financials for period ending December 31st, 2022, and the quarterly investment report and financials for period ending March 31st, 2023.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman, I think it was Schick. Any discussion?
Yes, I had some questions for them, just going through it real quick. We don't have to spend a lot of time. We've already gone over the sales tax and the ad valorem coming in, and the citywide services. So we're probably 6 months in, we're at 68%. So we're pretty well in line. We're not that far off. Is that like overtime and stuff like that with the weathers we've had here lately with the street crews having to work?
Let me find that. Which item was that again?
Which item?
Yeah.
7E?
Like on
The first page of your second one, the second quarter on March 31st ending. It's at the bottom, number 18 under expenditures.
yes.
Does that count overtime and all that stuff?
Number
City services?
it's citywide services.
Yes.
That's where like contracts and consulting and things that aren't really tied specifically to one department.
Okay, that's good right there. I got it. I was looking, I guess it's the third page after that. On the street maintenance fund,
Yes, sir.
it shows that how much you brought in, but do we normally show the EDC and the management in these also? If it is, I didn't see it, so.
The just city-related funds. The management district has their own financial report and the EDC has their own. This is entirely
This is only for the city and not those. Okay.
the general fund and all the funds associated with the city of Dickinson.
I think that was it. I appreciate it.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7F, consideration and possible action approving an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing amendment to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Dickinson regarding certain fees listed and referenced in the code to be relocated from the code to a master fee schedule kept by the city secretary, providing that the master fee schedule may be updated and amended by resolution, providing that the fees, charges, costs, and other expenses required by the City of Dickinson for activities, permits, and other matters related to planning and zoning, commercial and residential buildings in the Fire Marshal's office be updated to reflect the fee schedule attached to this ordinance, and making other findings and provisions related to the subject. Second and final reading.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson
Second.
and a second by Councilman Linton. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7G, consideration and possible action approving a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with the Goodman Corporation for grant administration for the City of Dickinson.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Linton. Discussion?
Good question. Who's doing it now? Or is it the same ones?
Goodman Corporation, I have Brian Brown here. Goodman Corporation would be working on grants, especially specifically for transportation purposes. And Brian can kind of talk a little bit about what the firm does. I know a couple of people are relatively new, but Brian and Goodman Corporation have been a part of our mobility plan. So when you saw kind of like a lot of the work where talk about walkability, bikeability, but also where there need to be expansions of highway and how we can go about grant funding that through HGAC, that's kind of their specialty. So we already have public management, which does a lot of stuff for like flood mitigation. So that's why we have a lot of the TDM stuff and so forth. But Goodman does really great work and have good ties with HGAC. With them. And so that's kind of what this contract is for. Would you like to hear a little bit about Goodman Corporation?
I've heard of them before, and I think they've been doing business around here for a while with the city, right?
Yes, sir.
So I was just curious who was doing it now and what grants they were going out for. So
Would you care to kind of list some of the grants that we're kind of looking at along the way? Because I mean, they're kind of listed in the work scope, but Brian, would you like to talk a little bit about kind of what the plan is with this contract? Just synopsis?
Sure. So as we continue to move forward with the mobility plan and identify new projects, this funding would be used to pursue grant opportunities to implement those projects along the way. Grant sources that we look at include stuff from the federal Highway Administration, TxDOT, Houston Galveston Area Council, as was mentioned earlier. These are rolling opportunities that come out every year, every 2 years. And so we want to position these projects for those grant funds as they become available.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Let's take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7H, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute a change order to the city's contract with Waller County Construction LLC for street improvements.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson. Is there a second? A second by Councilman Schick. Any discussion?
on the back page, it just says it's $95,000.
Yes, sir.
And it says it was for additional streets added for 30,000, I guess, square foot. So
What streets did we do?
So this is dealing with 27th Street. Alex will come up and talk a little bit about it as well.
In the Nicholstone?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened in this situation is the 27th Street is on our kind of phase 2 of the summer. And what happened was our contractor was well ahead of schedule for paving. We were getting kind of late May, early June, and he was supposed to stay till June 30th, but he was finishing up. And so we had one street that has been causing some, we had some pretty severe car damage driving down 27th, especially in the transitions in Nicholstone where the concrete had been done. And so we were getting people showing up with busted tires to City Hall, bent rims. We knew 27th Street was going to be done sometime probably in August or September. And so what we did was we took that one, since we had about 30 days, we took that one project that was going to be kind of in phase 2, moved it up into phase 1. It needs to be a change order because we had, issued a certain amount of money for 27th Street to be done in the second phase, not the first phase. So we took the money from phase 2, put it into phase 1. And so that's what the projects, that's why the scope changed, but it's not really changing the scope for the paving project for the year, basically.
Okay, my second question was where the money come from, but the money's already budgeted. We just moved it up ahead of time.
Yes, sir. And because and it's because Waller County, if I'm not mistaken, was probably about 30 days ahead of schedule. So we were able to fit one more street in now instead of, having one or two more irate people coming up to City Hall about busted rims and things of that nature.
Also on the original invoice, did not get sent. It has the description of all the streets, including 27th. The $95,908 was deducted out of this amount for the change order. So we had to deduct it off the original invoice. It did not send in the email when I sent that one. So
Okay, so I was asking what it was and where it came from. Thank you.
Hey, Theo, have you guys, the Public Works Department, have proper cost controls in place to monitor your KPIs and make sure that your scope and budget are adhered to? And
Yeah.
when we do have a change order, you can verify against the original scope and budget.
So basically the way this contract is set up, so this is, so there are a few different ways cities can approve contracts. What we have in place is we worked on a contract alongside Missouri City. Missouri City had gone out for an RFP and they had created what we call a piggyback provision. And so in that contract, there is a very specific unit material labor cost. So basically you're paying on a per square foot basis. So basically what happens is that Alexis goes out with the contractor. They do a full measurement of what's going to be paved. And before payment is issued, they go out, whatever base material needed to be formed up, it's kind of part of the overall, because basically what we're looking at is you're going to pave we're measuring surface area, but it's on them to do all the base leveling back up. And then so what happens is once Alexis and the contractor have agreed on the square footages, those got brought to council in phases 1 and 2. And then he goes and inspects, and then we cut a check once he sees that, yes, that 27th Street from whatever block to whatever block as agreed to has been completed. And then we look at a timeline and have they met their time frame that they were supposed to do it.
All right. All right, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8A, public hearings and action items from public hearings. Conduct a public hearing concerning the Dickinson, Texas Parks Trail and Recreation Master Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We've been working on the Parks Plan for a few months now. We're actually now have the full document. I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Mack from Kendig East to go over where we've been and where we're going with the Master Parks Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present a summary of the document. I'm Jennifer Mack. My office is 77 Sugar Creek Boulevard, Sugar Land, Texas. I'm the architect and senior urban designer for the project. Just a quick timeline of the events that happened throughout the project. We started back in August. So from August to October, We worked on the background, existing conditions. We had 2 listening sessions. And from those listening sessions, we derived the goals. And then from November to January, we visited each of the county parks in the area, knowing that the city doesn't have any, did a detailed inventory and assessment of those parks, and then had an online survey back in December, promoted them at 2 events here at City Hall and then also at Paul Hopkins Park. And then from February to March, we had 2 public open houses, looked at the needs and priorities, and then from April to July, we've been finalizing the master plan. So why this plan? To assess the status of and outlook for city's future, the parks and recreation, consider both national guidelines and local input, improve Dickinson's position in highly competitive process for state level grants, and to establish a short list of top priority initiatives, plus long-term possibilities depending on staffing and resources. So we prepared the master plan according to Texas Parks and Wildlife, what they consider an acceptable plan. So basically it plans for all of the city limits and the ETJ. It's a 10-year plan with recommendation of 5-year interim updates. And it is outlines per the Texas Parks and Wildlife guidance. We also have a section that shows the proof of plan adoption and then the documentation of the community support. So that's kind of why the appendix is as long as it is. It's 43 pages, reflects all the leadership and public input from all those meetings that we've had. And here's a couple images from those meetings as well as the survey. So the outline consists of basically 7 sections. I'll just quickly kind of run through each of these sections, but the first section was the introduction, context, and overview. That's what I mentioned earlier was the background with the community setting, population, demographic trends. The second section is the goals and objectives. These were the 6 goals that we kept hearing over and over again. The enjoyment of nature and more spaces to host community gatherings, blueway and greenway systems, safe and modernized parks, more public access to the bayou, more recreational and leisure programming, and cooperative agreements and coordinated efforts. The next section was concepts and standards. We listened to what the public had to say. For example, this is just one of many, but for providing handicapped accessibility to all park and trail facilities. And then the next column talked about the potential implications for siting, design, and improvements. So the image that you see there on the bottom right is what a park could potentially look like if you incorporate it all into one site instead of having separate parks for, say, softball fields, et cetera. The next section is the area and facility inventory with the detailed inventory of the existing assets and the condition of those assets. Would also list the private recreation assets. All this information helps us into the next section, which was the needs assessment. We looked at the park and Dickinson ISD service areas, where the gaps were, looked at the 2023 National Recreation Park Association agency performance review, compared it to the national standards and the median population per facility types to see where their deficits are. And then from there, knowing that Dickinson doesn't really have a trail system at the moment, we started with some potential connectivity possibilities using the existing assets that you do have, such as the sidewalks that were newly implemented along 517 and the bayou, and how we might be able to start to begin this trail network throughout the city. We also looked at the national metrics for programming and then tried to sync everything with the community priorities. The last section here is the priorities and implementation, the near-term action agenda. It's listed by order of priority, and then the potential time frame, the cost magnitude, which is going to vary because it depends on what the actual design is. Of course, it could range, and then potential resources and potential partners. such as grants or other funding mechanisms that you might be able to look at to help relieve some of the funding. So the draft of the plan is currently online. It's interactive. You can click on it and it'll jump down to different sections. The website is there at the online.encodeplus.com/regs Dickinson hyphen Texas. And right now it's currently the draft. If it gets adopted, then we'll replace that draft with the adopted version of it. And thank you if you have any questions.
Thank you. We'll have to ask questions here in a minute once we get to the next item. So don't go too far. All right. Okay, moving on to item 8B, consideration and possible action concerning adopting the Dickinson, Texas Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan, the first reading.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion approved by Councilman Brantley, a second by Councilman Schick. Is there any discussion?
Yeah,
Councilman Townsend.
question. This was because city administrator was going over this earlier. It has already gone through the process with the Parks and Wildlife and it's ready to go, or when we do this, you're going to send it to the Parks and Wildlife? So you brought it up, so that's why I'm asking.
Particularly when it goes for a grant, there's another, whether it's a city or I'm not sure if that was part of Goodman Corp, but somebody will usually go for a grant and then that gets submitted to Texas Parks and Wildlife. This just kind of acts as a document that helps within the grant process, but you can apply for any of the grants online at the Texas Parks and Wildlife, and there's a link to it in the document as well as other funding sources in the document that you can click on.
To put a finite question together on that for you, or to pin it up, is to say this plan for Texas Parks and Wildlife purposes meets the acceptable plan for maximum points, basically for grant to get maximum points on a grant. That's
Yes,
his
that's
question.
correct.
I want to make sure the question was answered. That's
So-
good.
Any other questions? All right, Councilman Brantley.
Yeah, well, no, I have a lot of questions, but I would prefer to schedule some time with maybe you and Yvonne and sit down and go over those rather than belabor the meeting.
Okay. All right. All right. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. All right. Move on to item 9, action items for consideration. Item 9A, consideration and possible action concerning a request for a 6-month extension of the specific use permit for a church in the GC zoning district. Ordinance number 993-2022, approximately 0.33 acres located at 5818 East FM 517 Road and legally described as Abstract 36 WG Banks Lots 5-6-7 and 8, Block 2, Tropical Gardens. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
The motion approved by Councilman Simpson. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
A second by Councilwoman Simpson. Any discussion?
Now, I got a couple questions.
Sure. Councilman Townsend.
When I look at the ordinance, when I'm looking through this, it shows that an ordinance was passed sometime. It's got signatures for sometime in 2022, but it don't have no date of the first reading or the second reading. So I'm assuming it was approved, but I would have thought that when they give us this, they'd have gave us the original dates in there, because the same thing happened at the last meeting. They give us an ordinance from 2018, whatever, but nobody signed it or anything. And second of all, I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking anyway. Why are we asking for them to give up their right to complain about a liquor license?
That is something that we've started adding into the specific use permits for churches. In this scenario, there is not currently one that's around them, but it is an option.
Yeah, I can kind of show. So when that one in particular came up, it is, if I'm correct, is located near the, where is that at? That's,
Tropical Gardens.
Yeah, by Tropical Gardens. I think there had been some restaurants in that general area previously.
Right next door.
Correct. And so the thought was they didn't want to kind of cause any issue with the business coming in there later, especially since one had existed there a
From
few
my
times.
understanding of the ordinance might change. If they were already selling beer, that's one thing.
Right.
but they have shut, from what I understand, they've shut down in the last month.
So I think our
So-
thinking was that since I don't think anyone was there at the time this was even passed, I think the thinking at that point was we don't want to hamstring what redevelopment could be in that building, especially since they served alcohol there before. So
Well,
that was just a matter of policy. I think that at the time that's what was thought.
But I think in your ordinances, they got to be, and there's supposed to be so many feet before they can sell alcohol from churches and schools.
Well,
and
that's
things like
actually,
that.
well, that's dealing with the state TABC. What TABC would say is that if it's within a certain footage, then the church has the ability to protest that. What we're saying is that if for you to put in as a policy, or the council has kind of been working with, is if you're in something commercial such as this is neighborhood commercial, so something that could have alcohol use or something else goes in, they would have a right to protest. So what we're saying is that you're going into a neighborhood commercial area, an area that use could be going into. We don't mind giving you a special use permit as long as you're okay with some of these other uses that would get knocked out otherwise, basically.
And I don't think this particular church had an issue with accepting that either when it was brought up. So
I think you're taking away their option of complaint. Be a nice way of putting it. And council can always tell them, well, they were already there, or we're going to let this restaurant go in here because you got to kind of sell alcohol of some type to compete in a restaurant type business, more or less. I understand that.
Yeah. Well, what this condition is saying is that if you go in there now, as we know, they have that one restaurant that's gone now, but if someone goes back in and we don't have that condition, they can absolutely go to the state and block alcohol sale within 300 feet of their door, basically. Like they can do that, and they don't even really have to ask any questions. State will just say blanket no. What this is saying is you're going into a neighborhood commercial area, you're agreeing not to do that within your 300 feet, basically, because you're going into an area that could, it's in our zoning. This could go there so you need to go ahead and agree not to do that when you go to the state, or it gives us a right of pulling that permit, basically, for them to operate.
What was the date that it was
Councilman Schick.
approved before?
It is actually just now coming up on 1 year. I actually reached out to them because they have submitted permits. So an SUP approval gives them 1 year to obtain permits. They just actually received their site development approval, I believe, about 3 months ago. And that approval, they have to have their permits for that to happen. And they're right at a year. I actually think it was like a year tomorrow.
I believe this was like the meeting that I was actually appointed. Like I was actually out in the audience for this one. I wasn't city manager as of yet.
I know it's off the subject, but they got enough room to build a building there and parking lots that don't look very big.
So this is actually an interesting property. There is also an easement that goes straight through the property. The site development plan that they actually recently had approved by Planning and Zoning Commission includes the church on one side of the property and then the parking on the other side. So they do have this site plan approved, and they just are waiting on permitting.
So
Yeah,
out of
Councilman Simpson.
curiosity, looking through the paperwork, it looks like the holdup right now, they're waiting on TxDOT, and that's what kind of slowed the process down. TxDOT
Yes.
didn't give them what they needed in time.
They have to have the driveway approvals onto 517 from TxDOT, and we don't have those yet.
Okay.
And that
Get that?
it can take longer than that. Sometimes I've seen driveway approvals take up to 24 months with depending on the district of TxDOT you're dealing with. And that does kind of show you how our SUP process does collide with the real world that's out there sometimes.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one nay. Councilman Townsend. Motion carries. Item 9B, an ordinance of the City of Dickinson, Texas, setting the date for regular meetings of the City Council as required under the City of Dickinson Charter Section 3.08A, providing for repeal, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Move to approve.
There's a motion to approve by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Linton. So just to kind of state this one, for clarity's sake, this would be setting and all this could be subject to change if we choose to. The proposal here in front of us would be to say we would meet on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. as opposed to 7 p.m. The city charter only requires us to meet once per month. We have an ordinance that's had us meet twice per month. The thinking here being, if you look at some of the meetings like this one, for instance, it's pretty brief. There's not a lot here. And that there's really been the trend over the last year, 18 months. Theo's kind of been chirping in my ear for a while about this one. And the thought would be, that's not to say we might not meet 2 meetings, for instance, during the budget process, like what you brought up. We would kind of reserve those second Tuesdays for things like that as needed. And I think it would help with some of that. We've had some meetings. We tend to move fast. Sometimes we end up pretty late. So starting at 6 will kind of help us to get out here while the sun is still up occasionally, which would be good. And I think that's the kind of the general idea. So this is what that proposal would lay out. So it's not, if in some ways we're actually more consistent with the charter because it says we're supposed to meet once a month. So we would just call special meetings.
For clarity, it's listed as a second Tuesday. So right now you meet on the second and fourth. This is written so that you're regularly the second. So
Yeah.
it's whatever you want
The
to do.
fourth would be, if we went to one, I'd prefer it be the fourth, but just because
All
so
right.
finance can do their
Well,
thing.
we can address that when we
At that time.
if we move along. All right. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yeah,
Councilman Townsend.
predominantly forever, more or less. They've met around here twice a month since before I ever come around. I mean, there's a perception already that we hide things. And if we go to one meeting, I think that just makes the perception that we're hiding more stuff. But I'd rather come in here and do 2 quick meetings than I would sit here one time for 5 or 6 hours.
Well, I don't think we'll be sitting here for 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah,
We have
but
one meeting.
There are city councils that do that.
There are, but
And on the long meeting, and I prefer, I mean, really, the second one should be the one because you know you're gonna have to move November and December anyway, because you always cancel the 4th meeting to begin with. My opinion is we should continue with 2 meetings a month.
All right, so Councilman Simpson?
Yeah, I was going to say, between the Uniform Development Code and the Death Star bill, we're likely not going to have much to vote on starting September 1 anyway.
But and 2, with people to get elected this board, at one time, being here at 6 o'clock would have never happened. You got people who get elected, work 12-hour shift. They don't get out of the plant till 6 or 7 o'clock. They're going to be hard. They'll never make it on time. This board can be here at 6 o'clock, but you might have new people get on that work shift. They can't make it at 6 o'clock.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, we haven't had that problem for at least 4 years. I don't think the council prior to
I
when
have,
I
because I
came on
worked
was.
12-hour shift
Well-
when I was working 6 to 6. So I'd get home, walk in, take a shower, put something on, and get up here in an hour from Texas City. You don't leave much time to waste.
Well, and what I'd say is that if the time, I think the time can always be addressed as well on a per council basis. Like, if it becomes that someone becomes elected and they can't meet at
Always
that time,
change
we can always readdress the time issue. I mean, that's a lot easier to change than a charter, obviously. So, I mean, I can always change.
I mean, I get
per
it. So
council.
my wife, she's on the board at the college. They meet at a horrible time. They meet at 1:30 in the middle of the workday.
Well, I know Galveston does the same thing.
What she does is just because, especially they only meet once a month. What she does is she just arranges it with her work. They know, and she just takes it off for those few hours, and it works out okay. It's not a daily thing, but anyway, I mean, I would say the perception that things are being hidden. I mean, I'm aware that there are some that say that kind of stuff, but showing up to meetings where we're only approving SUPs. In some cases, we've had that happen. And as we're moving towards the Uniform Development Code, we probably will not have SUPs. As Councilman Simpson said, some of the things that some of the ordinances we passed this past year wouldn't have been allowed to probably pass those underneath the law. I'm kind of have the total opposite view of you. I'm not particularly keen on showing up for a pointless meeting that could be compressed with another meeting and just knock it all out in one go, rather than kind of come, arrange a day, show up, have everybody come up here. And I feel like it's a more efficient use of time if we kind of compress and get everything done, my opinion. Councilman Brantley?
Yeah, so I see both sides. However, with this particular issue, I do understand where Councilman Townsend's coming from, and I can understand where Councilman Schick would feel the same way, especially being new to council and trying to learn the ropes and what all we've got going on. I know the meetings can be valuable. I was just looking back at the budget calendar for the fiscal year, knowing that we're going into the, from a budget standpoint, the busiest time of year for council, and we already have two meetings scheduled every month with the budget calendar through the end of the fiscal year. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the thought, right? But I would, I guess I'll make a formal motion to table until October the 10th, which is our first meeting on Tuesday, and decide after the beginning of the fiscal.
Well, I mean, I would say we don't necessarily have to table. If you're in favor of doing it, what we could do is just have it not be effective till a certain date.
Well, no, but I think I think I would rather have that discussion after the budget season. I think I would rather reserve the conversation until after the beginning of the fiscal year.
I think you would have to vote down the motion on the floor to motion for a table.
No, the motion to table would supersede. So so if you're making a motion to the table, there's a motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second to table. There's no discussion of a motion to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
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 I wasn't quite clear. We're voting on the motion.
There's a motion to table.
Okay.
You might need to do a show of hands.
Yeah, all those in favor of the motion to table, show of hands. All right, all those opposed? All right, motion fails. So we'll continue discussion of the item.
Oh,
Councilman Simpson.
yeah, I was going to say, my understanding is it doesn't mandate, right? We could still have
A special meeting.
We could still have 2 meetings a month.
Correct.
But right now, we're on the hook for 2 meetings a month. And if we want to meet once a month, we have to vote to cancel that meeting. So this eliminates the need to have
Correct.
to vote to cancel. We could still meet twice a month going forward. This just gets us in line with the ordinance.
Could we further amend this to state, as to Mark's point, in November and December, that's when we'll meet?
I mean, we can write this.
And just put it in there right now so that we don't have to
Sure.
make
Yeah,
that change later.
November and December, they need to meet on the second Tuesday,
Tuesday.
and the others should meet on the fourth Tuesday. Because I'm trying to make sure that we don't have any other holidays that we're hitting.
Ones we always change.
Yeah, and actually, one of the things, and I think Councilmember Townsend did make one really good point, was like, there's sometimes some time of the essence that really having 2 meetings a month to get, because we do have the minimum 2 readings for ordinances and for some of these SUPs to get through. If there is a time of the essence thing where we're really trying to work with a developer or really work with a community member, that would be an opportunity. If we're talking about like, when would we have the 2 meetings a month, we can talk in that meeting right then and there. Hey, do we want to go ahead and preliminarily call a special meeting for the next 2 weeks from then,
Right.
basically. I mean, I think there's ways we can do it and still accomplish everything, but that's up to you guys. This is more of a policy of how the council wants to run. So
Kind of my only concern,
Councilman
Mayor, was kind of to Theo's point, was how long are we going to make people wait for things that they're waiting for approvals for? And so if we were going to put something in writing that said we would, allow ourselves to have a special meeting if needed to approve those urgent items, I think that would be fine.
Well, we don't even have to put it in writing. The charter allows us to call special meetings as is.
Well,
So
and the ordinance in there also addresses special meetings as well. And what I would say is that let's reserve, if we are going to 1 meeting a month, that we try to schedule it for that second Tuesday, so no one has to all of a sudden,
Right.
Start like, oh no, is that on a Wednesday? Is that on a Thursday? Keep it on the second Tuesday if we're going to have a special meeting. It probably makes it easier to schedule at that point.
I think also having some time in between the meetings would, in my opinion, having been a city employee for a long time, would give the employees, the staff, more time to process the requests and to process the things that come out of our meetings, and to give them the care that they need rather than immediately preparing for the next meeting following that. And I just think maybe that would be helpful.
yeah, I didn't really consider that, but you're right. The staff does run around pretty hectic, and it certainly cuts down on some of that stuff as well.
The only-
So just to be, I
One
see, Bill, just go ahead.
Just one other thing that I have a concern about, just for example, the EDC may have contracts that need to be approved, and we may not have the time to wait 30 days. So then we'll be calling a special meeting just to approve a contract.
So I don't think it would be, because so EDC right now, we meet the second Monday, correct? I think. Yeah, so we would be meeting the fourth Tuesday, so it would only be a couple weeks. P and Z operates like that. I think a few others do. So yeah. Yeah, we've got 2 weeks. So
Well, now, actually, EDC was the consideration for having the meeting on, there were two things actually for the reason to have it on the fourth Tuesday and not the second Tuesday was because if you do second Tuesday and make that the regular, then anytime the EDC has business and they need council to approve something after they've approved it, then we would have had to call a special meeting. Now it actually falls in line with our regular schedule. EDC comes first. If they have an approval, they're waiting on us, and we're right on time to be at the fourth Tuesday to approve it, basically. So that shouldn't mess up the EDC timeline. Now, if we did second Tuesday, it would do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. If anything, I think kind of how it is now is that sometimes EDC, I think there's been a couple of contracts we put on the agenda that we're assuming get passed, which I mean, it's okay to do. You can just, if it doesn't pass, right, then we can just say it didn't pass, but it does also let us be a little more kind of accurate or intentional in the agendas.
So we lose the second Tuesday in November, December, correct?
Well, what?
I mean, the fourth in
We lose
November.
it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, those have always been canceled. So what I would say is, and that's what maybe and that's maybe for consideration on this motion as well as what was offered was to make the November and December meetings the second Tuesday for those 2 months, because then we wouldn't have a meeting at all, really.
No, we can just memorialize it in this ordinance, so we don't have to put it in the agenda to change it because we always change it. So we need to make sure, because we've made, I think, one change to the motion would be for it as stated, but there's two changes. One, it's the fourth
So the two things
Tuesday,
are-
not
well,
the second.
Sorry, so the two changes were that we need to clarify that the ordinance needs to include November and December. It's the second Tuesday of the month.
Correct.
All other months, it's the fourth Tuesday.
Correct.
The time for each of those is 7:00 PM,
6 o'clock.
6:00 PM. You want to change it to 6:00?
We had discussed. Okay. And then, okay, that's it, I think. First of all, the people that made the motion, who you're escaping me who that was. Do you all agree to those changes?
Yeah, I agree to that amendment.
Okay. Who did second it? Was it Fred? Did you second it? Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All
Would
right.
this be this is a first reading, correct? Yeah, this is a first reading, so we can come back.
Understood. All right. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. All right. Please raise your hands if you're no. All right. With Councilman Brantley, Schick, and Townsend voting no, motion carries. All right. With that, we have no executive session this evening. We'll move on to item 12, adjournment.
So moved.
There's a motion adjourned by Councilman Townsend,
Second.
a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:14 PM.
Lord, it's freezing.